Your children don't need all this fancy therapy nonsense. My mother-in-law's voice crackled through the phone, dripping with disdain. I've given the center to Amanda. She'll put it to better use with her normal kids. I gripped my phone tighter, trying to process what I was hearing. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 35, I'd spent the last decade building the most comprehensive educational therapy center in our state. A center specifically designed to help children like my twins who have special needs. What exactly do you mean, you've given it to Amanda? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. Exactly what I said, Margaret sneered. I've already changed the locks and transferred all accounts to her name. Amanda has real children who could use that space for their dance classes. Your twins just need discipline, not all these expensive treatments. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk, my beautiful 8-year-old twins, Lucas and Emma, beaming after their first successful speech therapy session. The center had been their safe haven, a place where they could learn and grow at their own pace, surrounded by understanding professionals and specialized equipment. Margaret, you have no authority to. Oh, but I do, she interrupted, her voice sickeningly sweet. Your husband signed over everything to me last month. He agrees the twins need to stop being coddled. Amanda's already planning to convert the sensory room into a ballet studio. My blood ran cold. Tom, my husband, had been distant lately, spending more time with his family, especially his sister Amanda. But this felt impossible. The center has licenses, certifications. I started. Paperwork can be changed, Margaret laughed. Besides, who's going to stop us? You're just one person, and the whole family agrees with this decision. The twins will thank us later. I ended the call without another word, my hands shaking as I pulled up my emails. There it was, dozens of notifications about account changes, ownership transfers, all dated from the past week while I was at a special education conference in Seattle. The center wasn't just a building. It was a lifeline for over 50 families whose children needed specialized support. We had state-of-the-art equipment, specially trained therapists, and programs tailored to each child's needs. Amanda knew nothing about running a therapy center, let alone the complex requirements for maintaining our licenses and certifications. My office door creaked open and Lisa, our lead occupational therapist, poked her head in. Olivia, there's someone here claiming to be the new owner. She's demanding access to all the client files. I took a deep breath, straightening my spine. Tell Amanda she'll need proper authorization to access any confidential information. She's with your mother-in-law, Lisa added, her voice low. They're threatening to call the police if we don't comply. Let them, I said, pulling out my phone. In fact, I have some calls to make myself. What Margaret and Amanda didn't know was that I'd spent years protecting the center, not just for my children, but for every family who relied on our services. Tom might have signed some papers, but ownership of a licensed therapy center isn't something you can transfer like a used car. I dialed Dr. Morris, head of the state license board and a longtime advocate for special needs education. Sarah? It's Olivia Parker. We have a situation. As I explained the circumstances, Dr. Morris' response was immediate. This is a serious violation of multiple regulations. I'll have a team there first thing tomorrow. Don't let them access any client files. Next, I called James Henderson, my lawyer since the center's founding. They did what? He exclaimed. Olivia, this is actually perfect. We've got them on at least a dozen violations. I could hear Margaret and Amanda's voices getting louder in the hallway, their demands becoming more aggressive. But for the first time since receiving that call, I felt calm. They thought they were taking something from me, but they were really just walking into a trap of their own making. Through my office window, I watched as Amanda strutted around the playground equipment we'd specially designed for children with sensory processing issues. She was measuring spaces, probably already planning her dance studio renovations. Margaret stood nearby, looking smug as she pointed out changes they'd make. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Mom says you're being difficult about the center. Just let it go. Amanda needs this. I stared at his message, feeling a strange mix of sadness and determination. The man I married would never have dismissed our children's needs like this. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost him to his family's influence, but I wouldn't lose this center. Too many children depended on it. Lisa knocked again, her face worried. They're threatening to have us all removed for trespassing. I stood up, smoothing down my jacket. Tell them to wait in a conference room. I'll be right there. As I gathered my files, licensing documents, certification requirements, client confidentiality agreements, I thought about every child who'd found their voice in our speech therapy rooms, every parent who'd cried tears of joy watching their child master a new skill. Margaret and Amanda were about to learn that taking over a licensed therapy center involved a lot more than changing locks and transferring bank accounts. They thought they were dealing with just one determined mother. They had no idea they were about to face the full force of state regulations, medical licensing boards, and a team of professionals who dedicated their lives to helping special needs children. I walked toward the conference room, my heels clicking against the floor with each step. Through the glass, I could see Margaret and Amanda, looking impatient and superior. They thought this was the end of something. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. The conference room door clicked shut behind me as I entered, facing Margaret and Amanda's smug expressions. Amanda was already sitting in my chair, feet propped up on the custom table we designed for our parent-therapist meetings. Finally, Margaret huffed. "We've been waiting forever. Now hand over the client files and leave quietly. We don't want to make a scene." I placed my folder on the table, carefully sliding into a chair across from them. "Before we discuss anything, I should inform you that this entire conversation is being recorded. It's standard protocol in all therapy center meetings." Amanda's feet dropped from the table. "You can't record us without permission." "Actually, it's stated clearly in the sign you passed entering the building. The one next to our licensing and certification displays." I opened my folder, spreading out several documents. "Speaking of which, let's discuss what you're actually trying to take over." "We're not trying anything," Margaret snapped. "We've already done it." Tom signed ownership transfer papers. I interrupted calmly. "But this isn't just a building or a business. This is a licensed medical facility specializing in pediatric therapy. Let me explain exactly what you've walked into." I pulled out our state licensing documentation. "First, to operate any medical therapy facility, you need qualified medical directors. Amanda, what's your medical background?" Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "I don't need one. I'm turning this into a children's activity center." "Interesting." I made a note on my pad. "So you're planning to terminate medical services for 53 children currently under treatment plans. Plans that are, by the way, legally binding contracts with insurance companies and medical providers?" Margaret waved her hand dismissively. "Those children can go somewhere else. This location is perfect for Amanda's dance studio." "Perfect except for the specialized medical equipment bolted to the floors and walls," I continued. "Equipment that's leased through medical supply companies and tied to our facility's license. Equipment that cannot be removed or repurposed without state medical board approval." The confidence was starting to fade from their faces. I pressed on. "Then there's the matter of patient confidentiality. By attempting to access patient files without proper medical credentials or authorization, you've already violated AIBA regulations. That alone carries significant legal penalties." "You're just trying to scare us," Amanda said, but her voice wavered. Dr. Morris from the state license board didn't seem scared when I spoke with her earlier. "She's very interested in meeting you both tomorrow morning. She's particularly curious about your plans to convert a licensed medical facility into a dance studio without proper reasoning permits." Margaret's face reddened. "Tom approved all of this. You're just being difficult, as usual." "Tom's signature means nothing without proper medical board approval." "Would you like to see the actual requirements for transferring ownership of a medical therapy facility?" I pulled out another stack of papers. "It's quite extensive. Background checks, medical credentials, state board reviews." The door opened and Lisa entered with another woman I'd been expecting. "Miss Parker, Dr. Reynolds from the insurance board is here for her scheduled inspection." Margaret and Amanda's heads whipped around as a stern-looking woman in a business suit entered, carrying a tablet. "Perfect timing," I said. "Dr. Reynolds, these are the individuals attempting to terminate services for our patients without proper insurance notification." Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "The ones planning to convert a licensed therapy center into a dance studio. How fascinating. I have several questions about your intended handling of active insurance claims and ongoing treatment plans." Amanda stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Mom, let's go." "Leaving so soon?" I asked. But we haven't even discussed the equipment contracts, medical record retention requirements, or facility licensing compliance. Did you know that attempting to terminate medical services without proper patient notification is considered patient abandonment? The medical board takes that very seriously. Margaret's face had gone from red to pale. You planned this. No, Margaret. You planned this. I'm just following the procedures and protocols required by law. The same laws you thought you could ignore. Tom will hear about this, she threatened. Yes, he will. Along with his signature on fraudulent transfer documents. The medical board is particularly interested in that part. They stormed out of the conference room, Margaret already pulling out her phone, probably to call Tom. I turned to Dr. Reynolds, who was actually my friend Sarah from law school, now specializing in medical facility compliance. Think they bought it? She asked with a slight smile. The insurance board badge was a nice touch, I replied. How long before they realize you're not actually from the board? Long enough for the real inspectors to arrive tomorrow. James called in some favors. They're expediting everything. No one's happy about someone trying to shut down a children's therapy center. I sank into my chair, the adrenaline finally wearing off. I just can't believe Tom was part of this. Sarah squeezed my shoulder. Focus on protecting the center first. We'll deal with Tom later. My phone buzzed. Speaking of Tom. His message was exactly what I expected. Mom's furious. Why are you making this so difficult? Just let Amanda have the center. You're being selfish. I showed Sarah the message. She shook her head. He really has no idea what he's done, does he? No, I replied, but he's about to find out. Outside my office, I could hear the regular sounds of the center continuing, children laughing in therapy sessions, parents chatting in the waiting room, the gentle whir of specialized equipment. All of this had been built with love, care, and strict adherence to every medical and legal requirement. Margaret and Amanda thought they could just walk in and take it all away. They thought because Tom had signed some papers, they could erase years of work and dedication. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Tomorrow, the real officials would arrive. Tomorrow, every violation they committed would be documented. Tomorrow, they'd understand exactly what happens when you try to steal a licensed medical facility from someone who'd spent years protecting it. But for now, I had therapy sessions to oversee and children who needed the safe space we created for them. I picked up my next patient's file, heading to the session room where a young boy waited to continue his speech therapy. This center wasn't just a building or a business. It was a lifeline, a sanctuary, and a place of hope. And I would fight with everything I had to keep it that way. The real battle was just beginning. The next morning arrived with the weight of anticipation. I got to the center early, watching through my office window as 3 official vehicles pulled into the parking lot. Dr. Morris from the State License Board led the team, followed by representatives from the Medical Board and Child Services. My phone had been buzzing all night with messages from Tom and his family. Accusations, threats, guilt trips, but I silenced it. The time for family drama was over. This was about protecting the children who depended on our services. Right on cue, Margaret and Amanda burst through the front doors, Tom trailing behind them. The confidence on their faces faltered when they saw the officials gathered in the lobby. What's going on? Tom demanded, finally finding his voice. Olivia, what have you done? Mr. Parker, Dr. Morris stepped forward. I'm from the State License Board. We're here to investigate multiple violations regarding attempted unauthorized transfer of a medical facility and patient endangerment. The color drained from Tom's face. Patient endangerment? This is just a misunderstanding about ownership. A misunderstanding. The medical board representative cut in, opening a folder. We have documentation of attempts to access confidential patient files without authorization, plans to terminate ongoing medical treatments without notice, and fraudulent transfer of a licensed medical facility. Each of these is a serious violation. Margaret stepped forward, her usual arrogance cracking. Now wait just a minute. Tom signed everything over legally. Mrs. Parker. Dr. Morris interrupted. Your son's signature alone doesn't authorize the transfer of a medical facility. The documents you attempted to file are fraudulent. The penalties for such actions are severe. Amanda started crying. But my dance studio will need to be planned elsewhere, the Child Services representative stated firmly. This facility serves children with specialized medical needs. Your attempt to disrupt their care is deeply concerning. I watched as the reality of their situation finally sank in. Tom turned to me, his face a mix of anger and fear. "Why didn't you tell me about all these regulations? Would you have listened?" I asked quietly. "You didn't even ask me before signing away our children's therapy center. Did you think about Lucas and Emma at all?" His expression crumbled. For the first time, he looked past his mother's influence and saw the magnitude of what he'd almost done. The next hour was a blur of official documentation and interviews. Margaret and Amanda were escorted out, both facing potential legal consequences for their actions. Tom sat in the waiting room, head in his hands, as the gravity of his involvement became clear. Dr. Morris pulled me aside after completing her initial investigation. "The center is secure, Olivia. We're implementing additional protections to prevent any future attempts at unauthorized transfer." "But," she hesitated, "you should know we're required to report Mr. Parker's involvement to the proper authorities." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. "I understand. The children's safety has to come first." Later that afternoon, I found Tom still sitting in the waiting room, watching as our twins worked with their speech therapist through the observation window. Lucas had just mastered a difficult sound combination, and Emma was clapping for him. "I really messed up, didn't I?" Tom's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes," I replied, sitting beside him. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" He turned to me, tears in his eyes. "I let Mom manipulate me again. I was so focused on keeping the peace with my family that I forgot about our own children's needs. Can you ever forgive me?" "That depends," I said, watching our children through the window. "Are you ready to put them first? Really first, not just when it's convenient or when your mother approves." The center slowly returned to normal over the next few weeks. Margaret and Amanda faced legal consequences for their attempted takeover, including fines and mandatory education about medical facility regulations. Tom started therapy, finally addressing his family's toxic influence and working to rebuild trust with me and our children. The incident had an unexpected silver lining. Our center received additional funding and support from the medical board, impressed by our strong protective measures and commitment to patient care. We expanded our services, helping even more children and families in need. 1 year later, I stood in our newly expanded sensory room, watching as Lucas and Emma showed their father the new equipment. Tom had become a regular volunteer at the center, finally understanding the vital role it played in our children's lives. "Mrs. Parker." Lisa appeared at my side. "The new family is here for their tour." I smiled, heading to the lobby where anxious parents waited with their young daughter. I recognized that look of hope mixed with fear, the same look I'd had years ago when searching for help for my own children. "Welcome to our center," I said warmly. "Let me show you how we can help." As I led them through the facility, explaining our programs and watching their daughter's eyes light up at the specialized equipment, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. What Margaret and Amanda had intended as destruction had only made us stronger. This was more than just a victory over family drama. It was a reminder that some things are worth fighting for, that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. The center stands today as a testament to that truth, helping children find their voice, their strength, and their path forward. And that's something worth protecting, no matter what.